there's no point at which I will have like made it or reached the end or whatever. And that is super motivating for me. And I think like I'm not someone that suffers from burnout where it's like, oh, I just did this hard project and now I just want to like chill for a while. It's like, oh, I just did this hard project. I'm like, what's next? Like I'm psyched for the next thing.
Alex, could you rank the LCAP big wall free climbs in order from easiest to hardest?
All right. From easiest, you have the free rider, which is so easy that it's been soloed. So that's pretty chill. Then you have Golden Gate, you have the Salate, you have Corzone. Those are kind of the easy walls. Beyond that, you start getting into the mid-tier LCAP routes, which are...
Wait, how easy is easy when you say those things?
Those are 13B. And those are, some of them are hard 13B, but basically they're 13B. And they're kind of just doable. They're things that a good climber should be able to do ground up or just kind of like as an adventure. Then you get into the ones that are a little harder. So there's the mirror wall with a bunch of different variations, but basically all the variations of the mirror are sort of 13C-ish, 13 plus-ish. There's El Nino with the variations like La Nina, the slightly harder direct version. And then there's like the Zodiac, but that's pretty freaking hard. And then you start getting into the really hard ones, which are kind of like the Tommy routes, like the Dihedra wall, Magic Mushroom. Lurking Fear hasn't been repeated, maybe Broken, the West Buttress. There are a couple other Tommy routes. Obviously the Dawn Wall, most notably, is the hardest.
And how many of those have you done in your career?
Oh, I forget. I don't know, like a lot of them, but not all of them. Well, not even close to all of them. I haven't even done the hard ones. I've only done all the easy ones.
Only the easy ones, quote unquote.
Yeah. And actually, to me, it depends on if you count whether or not doing them in a day count separately. Because it is kind of a different experience, and I've always kind of considered it as a different thing, because going wall style on something is a lot different than climbing in a day.
I'm curious, because like in my own experience in Yosemite and climbing, like I did a lot of the other routes, but somehow like the idea of like I could climb LCAP, but like the idea of like free climbing these things, like it was really daunting for me. Like I just didn't even know how to tackle it.
But that's because you were climbing way back when, right? They didn't even have ropes really, and it was like swamis. It was like kind of scary back then, wasn't it?
It's true. Yeah. It was. Yeah. No, it wasn't quite that long ago, but it was a long time. It was a while back. But I'm curious, like going through that process, like where did you start? Like how did you tackle them? Did you have a sense of where to start? And did even the success the first time surprise you?
Yeah, well, I started with the easiest ones. I started by climbing other routes in Yosemite, because obviously I had the same experience where LCAP is much too daunting when you first go. So I started with the easy multi-pitches, with Royal Arches and Crest Jewel and like these easier walls that are slabbier. And then, built my way up to Half Dome. And then I climbed LCAP just as an aid route first, because just getting up LCAP is, enough of a challenge the first time. And then eventually you start to think about free climbing LCAP. And so I started with the easy routes with the Salate and with Freerider. Though also it's worth noting that I started free climbing LCAP so long ago that, these routes all existed, but they were way more fresh. There were way fewer bugs, way more adventurous. Like, I did the third ascent of a couple of these free routes back when they were like new. And so, just started with the easy ones and originally did them sort of wall style if I could, and then tried to do them again in a day, over the next seasons as I improved.
Yeah. Who is our guest today?
Today we are chatting with Amity Warme, who is currently one of the best wall climbers in the country, which has been an incredible rise because over the last few years she's basically done every hard multi-pitch across North America, which is I guess she would say that it's not everyone, but it certainly feels that way. She has been a very prolific big wall climber and traditional climber.
She's also done it in particularly good style. And in a lot of ways, it seems like Amity is just getting started, where her skills, fitness, training, and approach have all begun to catch up with her motivation and TryHardness. Is TryHardness a word? I think it is in this case.
Well, she made it a word.
She did. Yeah.
Go Amity. I'm Alex Honnold.
I'm Fitz Cahal.
This is Climbing Gold.
My name is Amity Warme, and I started rock climbing in college, which was like 11 years ago. And I've lived in a van for the past 7 years, and I rock climb and work as a sports dietitian. that's about it.
Well, I guess that's a wrap, huh? That's cool.
It.
That's the whole story. So what kind of climbing do you like the most?
I am most well known for trad climbing and like multi-pitch big wall. That is what people kind of know me for. I also really enjoy sport climbing and other single pitch things, but
Yeah, I was like, what do you actually like the most though?
oh gosh, all of it. I'm pretty terrible at bouldering, but I really enjoy any form of rope climbing.
I know. I remember bouldering with you a few years ago, and you'd never bouldered harder than V6 at the time, or something like that. It was crazy, and you'd already free climbed LCAP, I think. And I was like, this makes no sense. Like you free climbed LCAP, but you can't boulder V6.
Yeah, I was psyched. I was like super motivated to climb like some V5 because you were spotting me or something. I was like, I have to do this.
Yeah, I remember that. I was like, wow, there's a real gap here. But to me, those kinds of big gaps, though, are more of an indicator of how relatively young somebody might be in climbing, or like how many years, because it just means that you've devoted a lot of effort to one thing that you do really well. And at that point anyway, had devoted very little effort to something like bouldering. But obviously you're physically capable of either. You just haven't quite done it yet. Do you feel like you've balanced that out by this point, or, where are you now?
No, there's still a pretty big gap for sure. I've definitely done harder boulders on a rope than on the ground.
Yeah, well, why do you think there's such a difference?
I think I just haven't devoted that much time to actually going bouldering or like doing a bouldering trip. Like I'll train in the gym, I'll climb on the board, whatever. But then all of the stuff I'm projecting outside is on a rope, usually.
Why have you been so drawn to big walls and hard trad and adventure climbing? And I asked that because actually one of the themes of one of our last seasons of Climbing Gold was kind of the contrast between adventure climbing and athletic climbing, sort of competition climbing and the Olympics and all that versus going adventuring on big walls. And in general, it feels like athleticism has really been on the rise in climbing and adventure has been a little bit on the decline. And, your climbing trajectory stands in marked contrast to that, where it's like pure adventure, minus the free soling, but you can get to that at any point, But so, talk about that. Like, what makes you an adventurer?
I'm pretty good at suffering and like I'm very comfortable with discomfort. So I'm good at being on a wall or being in the cold or hanging out at a belay on a multi-pitch or whatever. I think that is a strength of mine in climbing, is that I can like deal with discomfort.
But does that make you want to seek out discomfort more?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, right now I'm like trying to transition. Like I have started working with a coach and I have spent a bunch more time in the gym in the last year. And I didn't even go to Yosemite in 2024. And I think I'm trying to make that transition right now, but it's hard. I mean, it's hard to be good at everything at the same time. It's hard to boulder hard and go climb a big wall and all the things.
Yeah, you say you didn't go to Yosemite this season, but you've been in Sedona climbing big walls nonstop for months, haven't you? It's like, isn't that basically the same thing? Climbing like really hard walls. It's like, true, they're not granite, but sandstone, it's the same idea.
Yeah. I mean, I love that adventure piece of it. And I think I'm drawn to the idea of like multi-pitch red pointing and that it requires you to be at least competent in all the things. Like you have to be able to execute a hard boulder. You have to have the sport climbing endurance. You have to be able to place gear. Like it kind of requires this culmination of all the skills. But I've also approached this season here quite a bit differently than things I have in the past, where I'm doing like a day of projecting outside and then a day of training in the gym and a rest day. And like, I'm not just going and spending 5 days on the wall at a time. Mm-hmm. I'm like actually trying to level up the foundation, which means like all these things I've been doing down here are taking longer and like I'm going to them tired or whatever, because I'm also trying to train, but with that idea of playing the long game, I guess.
Has that been hard for you to make the adjustment?
I mean, I get pretty frustrated when I like show up to the project and I'm tired and I don't send that day, when it feels like I probably could have if I was fresh. But I have also chosen that right now, where I'm willing to invest the time training and I guess, build raise the floor, where I'm then able to go do harder things.
I think you're trying to raise the ceiling. Ideally, you raise the ceiling. Your floor is already very, very high. And I say that because I've literally spent my entire almost 30 years of climbing in exactly the same position you're in, where it's like, oh, I do too much adventuring. I wish I was stronger. I should try to train more stronger, But then you're like, the reality is that I'm just really good at climbing 5'9" hand cracks all day long. And sadly, it's just much harder for me to pull hard than it is to climb 5'9" hand cracks. And I'm like, well, we all have our gifts. Are you training for anything specific? Like, I mean, if you want to raise the ceiling, you want to climb harder, is that for a specific goal this coming year? Or is that just a general, like, I need to be stronger?
A bit general. There are definitely specific goals that I feel like I do have to raise that ceiling for.
What kind of things? I mean, in the last few years, you've practically done every hard trad climb in the countries. And certainly most of the proud walls.
That's so not true.
Well, I mean,
up to like 13 plus, I've done a bunch. But there's like a pretty hard plateau at 13 plus, and there's a lot of harder trad climbs for me to go do.
they're on a ton more. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. But you've been pretty comprehensive up to 13 plus.
Yeah. I mean, I've spent a bunch of time on Cobra Crack. I still want to do that.
Oh, you didn't do that?
No, I have a very specific, like, morphological finger issue with that climb.
What about it? Now I'm so curious. I was like, what's wrong with your fingers?
A lot of things. I have really big knuckles, like somewhat genetically, but also just because I've crack climbed a lot, I think.
Does your knuckle not fit?
Yeah, so the like traditional mono beta.
I didn't use the mono either, though, because my finger just fully doesn't go.
But to not use the mono, you have to be either like really tall or really strong. And I'm not either of those things.
Well, I used it, I think, ring finger maybe, or pinky or whatever, like something else that kind of fit.
Oh, that's like, yeah. Anyway, I mean, I'm like training my monos right now, but
Each finger to see which one might fit.
yeah. But like my issue with the middle finger mono is like early season. So this past summer that I was up there, the first like 3 days on it, early in the season, finger fit great. Did the move, like really quickly one hung the route, thought I was going to do it, like felt great. Like I went in fully prepared.
Then your finger got swollen and you could never fit again?
Well, yeah, every subsequent day after that, it got like worse and worse. So I would like compression wrap my finger on the hike up. I would take a tape measure and like measure my finger to the millimeter to like before I climbed. And we found out that my finger was not changing size. The crack, like as the season warmed up, the rock expanded just enough for the crack to shrink like a millimeter and my finger to not fit.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's a thing.
Well, how big a difference in temperature is there?
I mean, I was there in like May in the 60s to summer in like the 80s.
80s.
Yeah.
Huh. That is crazy because I've climbed in Squamish a bunch, but I've only ever been there when it's warm, I guess. And I've just never thought about cracks changing size that much.
Yeah. I mean, you see it like gear falls out year to year, like fixed gear.
I think of that as like freeze thaw and stuff though, or I don't know. Is that really just, I mean, yeah, I guess that's true. All that to say, so you're training specifically so that you can, so that you can somehow surmount the Cobra with whichever finger is allowed in the crack.
Yeah, no, I've like actually been training every finger mono for the last few months to hopefully have a chance.
Yeah, I mean, if you can do the ring finger, then it's fine because it's just small enough, but almost as strong. And so you're kind of like, wow, it's,
yeah,
you know.
But like up till now, it was like way weaker. So I've had to actually put some time into that.
So what is left in terms of hard trad climbing for you? Like, what do you see on a short list of like you want to finish the Cobra Crack? What, like what else is on the short list?
I mean, I feel like pretty much anything else I want to do on LCAP, I would need to level up in some way. Like if I wanted to try the nose or any of the, I mean, I'm kind of running out at like 513.
You finished all the Hooper routes and now you have the Tommy routes and you're like, oh,
yeah, not there yet.
yeah, totally. The Tommy routes are like a whole different level. You're like, oh man.
I'm curious, like when it's funny because like I've heard you talk about this a couple times in the recent interviews we've done. Do you think that trying hard is a talent or a skill or something innate to people? Because like I've just heard you sort of say like, oh God, I wish I could try that hard, or I have a tough time trying that hard. And it's so funny because like I think of you and I think of trying hard, but you see it in other climbers and you're like, God, that is just something almost like freakish finger strength that maybe you don't have, or that is sort of special to certain people.
I kind of suspect that the ability to try your absolute hardest is a little bit of nature and nurture, just like everything in life, where I suspect some people just have a little more gumption like that to begin with. But then for sure, it's something you can cultivate, where like if you consistently practice at your limit, like if you train by going the hardest you possibly can all the time, then it's just easier to go your hardest, I suspect. Though I sadly haven't experienced that myself so much. I just find it hard to tap into max effort unless I really have to.
Like, how often do you find yourself tapping into that max effort?
Like, so rarely. Like, I don't know. I mean, just not that often. I mean, yeah, like yesterday, I did this big gym session at a commercial gym in San Francisco. I was visiting for work. And there were a couple different problems where I'm pretty sure I could have basically like exploded to the top of the wall, like just, frantically jumped the last move type deal and stuck the top and send. And it was just kind of a high wall. And I was like, I just don't quite care enough to send these boulders, And so I just like didn't send. And I'm kind of like, somebody like Adam Onder for sure would have power screamed and flown to the summit. And I was just like, I don't know. Like, I reserve that for the times where it freaking matters to me.
Yeah. Does Amity have that try hard?
I think Amity definitely has that try hard. I mean, if you've seen the video of her on Book of Hate, you have seen her try just so hard. It's incredible.
Like as hard as anyone can try, basically.
Yeah, as hard as anyone has ever tried. Yeah, it's incredible. Not many people have freed that many LCAP routes. Are you specifically drawn to LCAP free climbing, or is that just one of the many hard trad things that you seek out throughout the year?
No, I think it's just one of the many. Again, it's kind of that accumulation of like all these skills that you work on throughout the year. And I'm not going to go climb on LCAP multiple times a year, but like it's cool to have that experience once or twice of the year. And I don't know, we're all just chasing Babsy.
Yeah, totally. Though, I mean, it's funny. I mean, you doing Freerider in a day, sort of ground up unsupport. I mean, you'd already done the route and you'd done Golden Gate and whatever, so you knew it a bit. But still, just walking up and climbing the route is not that dissimilar to somebody flashing the route. Yeah,
no, that was a huge effort. That was a big one for me.
Actually, I read a quote from your husband Connor about your ability to give big efforts, basically. And I feel like that's been a big part of your success as a climber, is just being able to freaking give it when it counts. Actually, I should just say, and what about the freaking like viral Reddit video of you doing the Book of Hate? I mean, speaking of just giving it when it counts, I watched that video and I was like, oh my God, we should link to that in whatever, because this is the podcast, obviously. But no, in the video, you basically are sending and then you basically fall off and then you self-arrest and then you manage to send. It's totally incredible. Through sheer force of will, you just try so hard. I was like, oh my God, you're doing it. Okay, yeah, to talk about that kind of effort.
The comments on that video got so out of hand. The number of people calling me a goat, like sounding like a goat.
Did you sound like a goat?
Yeah, I mean, I'm out there like, ah. No. That was so hard. Holy shit. That was so hard. Oh my God. That was so desperate.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, well, obviously they've never climbed 13 plus on tiny cams, like totally gripped, and like it's funny because that video starts and your leg is already shaking, like before you've got into you're like, oh, it's all coming apart.
Like, some backstory on that, it was right after we did El Nino, and I still had like a fully ruptured pulley in my finger that was undiagnosed, and I'd gotten put on antibiotics because we thought it was infected. I was on these like heavy duty antibiotics that made me cramp super badly. And that was like my triceps were not functioning at that point in the route. I was just cramping so badly.
Well, so again, though, so then how do you summon the effort at that point? How do you not say take? How do you not get scared and just sit on the piece? Instead, you summon this superhuman effort. You manage to rally, you get your feet up, you stand up and you send. I mean, I don't know was that you actually red pointing?
Yeah, no, that was when I sent it.
Yeah, I mean, that's an incredible effort. I mean, it's like, I can't imagine someone trying that hard just for the video. So it's like, it must have been the real red point because you're like, that's.
Yeah, that was the limit for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just not that strong or that talented or whatever. Like, I have to try hard. I have to have good tactics. Like, my superpower in climbing is not my finger strength. So I have to just be able to try really hard.
And so how do you try that hard? I mean, I think, and I ask on behalf of all of us out there who are like, man, if I could just try 20% harder sometimes, I think I could send. It's like, how do you tap into that extra effort?
I think it's a skill that you have to develop with like very consistent, like you have to be getting to that place on a regular basis, like whether that's a session in the gym or whatever, like mini project you're doing. I feel like you have to be practicing tapping into that effort and like normalize that, I guess.
Is that tiring? I mean, like when you're in the gym, like in that video of you on the Book of Hate, you try so hard. I'm kind of like, man, I might be able to summon that kind of effort once a month, you know, for things that are like peak life experiences. But there is no chance I could summon that effort for every gym session.
Yeah.
You know, where do you lie on that spectrum? Do you actually try that hard all the time? I mean, obviously not that hard, but close to that.
No, definitely not at. I mean, that was like 120% effort level.
But it's so incredible. We have to link to the video for anyone who hasn't seen it. It's so good.
I'm sure everyone has seen it.
You know, how do you practice that skill? Like when you're in the gym and you're just training, like how hard do you try?
I don't know. I mean, I guess that's an interesting question because there's like theory and training of like you shouldn't be going to 100% all the time because you're just going to fatigue yourself. And
yeah, you're supposed to leave one rep in the tank, all that kind of stuff, not injure yourself, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So maybe training in the gym is not a good example of that. But like,
well, but do you personally try that hard in the gym?
No, not quite to that level.
Because I once randomly did a gym session with Adam Ondra, and he kind of was trying that hard, and we were there for this like random meet and greet with kids and stuff, and I was like, this is psycho. Like this is trying way too hard for like a casual like event where we're supposed to be like interacting with the public and like taking pictures with kids, and he was like power screaming and sending, and I was just like, oh my God. I was gonna like climbing V5s, just keeping it chill, being like, oh, I'm stretching.
And that's why he's the best.
Well, exactly. With that, no, totally. And that was the takeaway. Is I was like, should I be trying to just try a little harder like Adam? I was like, this is amazing.
I don't know. I feel like there's like some exercises. Like I'm trying to get better at one arm lockoffs right now, and I will give like 110% effort on those when I'm trying them because I feel like to actually make an improvement on that, I have to be pushing it pretty hard. But I don't know, I think like Sharma's another good example of this. Like he like tries really, really hard every time he's out climbing, and that is like a form of training for him where he's not necessarily spending a bunch of time training in the gym, but every time he's on the rock, he's like going on muerte. And that is why he has gotten good. And
yeah, he's also sort of preternaturally talented and just incredibly, you know, he's like one of the most gifted climbers of all time. So you're kind of like, oh, it's hard to compare. But I get your point that max effort is its own training to some extent. We'll be back with more after the break.
It's the North Face, sponsoring Climbing Gold this year. Alex, what is your action suit?
Well, my action suit, actually, when I'm at home, I think of it as my outdoor clothes because I actually do everything in either outdoor clothes or indoor clothes. And so my outdoor clothes are the super dirty outdoor, the synthetic layers, the fleeces, the puffies, the pants. I think I took this from Mark Twight maybe, but I think I do often think of it as my action suit. You're like, oh, this is the suit you put on to go outdoors. I mean, and particularly on expeditions like Antarctica, where you literally can't leave your tent without your action suit on because the conditions are so extreme that like you can't even get out of bed without putting on all the layers and the correct layers with the wicking bottoms and the mid layer and the outer layer and the waterproof layer. That's like in the most extreme environments, you do really have to wear the suit. It's like going to space. Like even when I'm doing casual climbing at home, I'm sort of like, oh, you may as well have the warmest thing, the lightest thing. And so I'm basically always using Summit Series, which is athlete tested, expedition proven. Whatever you practice in is what you want to perform in. If you're doing scary climbing all the time in a particular pair of pants, a particular jacket, you know that they fit, you know how they move, like that's what you're going to wear for the extreme things as well. The North Face has you covered. Find your action suit at thenorthface.com.
If you could eat only one meal a day and just have it be a bar, would you do it?
Yeah, if I could eat one big bar and be done for the day and not have to eat anything else, it'd be amazing.
Do you not like other food?
No, I like food, but the hassle of buying food, cooking food, prepping, eating, and then cleaning up, I'm like, I would do away with all that and just spend my time chilling.
Yeah.
And just eat a bar. It'd be amazing. I would inject it if I could.
Does David Barr get you one step closer to that dystopian reality?
David Barr honestly does feel like it's a step in the right direction towards my beautiful dystopian world where I only eat a single thing. I think the David bars are a totally worthy contribution to the bar space and that bars need this kind of disruption. I think it's nice to see a bar that has no added sugar, basically, and a lot of protein.
Like fill you up protein?
28 grams. I mean, I saw something on their box that their closest competitor is a piece of cod. And I was like, did you see that the little graphic where they're showing like the ratio of like protein to
Does it
price?
taste better than a piece of cod?
Totally.
Though?
I was like, I mean, it's definitely way more portable, way easier to eat while adventuring, and just kind of generally easier than taking a piece of cod with you. And they're just really tasty, so they're kind of a treat. If you'd like to try David, you can go to davidprotein.com/climbinggold. Again, that's davidprotein.com/climbinggold. And remember, if you get 4 cartons on the website, you get the 5th one free. Well, talk about your athletic background. Because, I mean, you were a competitive, sort of elite gymnast. Has that contributed to that level of effort? Does that, inform the way you train now? Like, what does that mean for your climbing?
Yeah, I grew up doing gymnastics pretty much my whole childhood. I think like ages 6 to 17. And then fractured my back at the end of high school and didn't continue with that.
Is that as serious as it sounds?
Yeah, I mean, it was like 2 stress fractures.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't really return to gymnastics and that level of intensity on just like that level of movement on your back wasn't ever going to be able to get back to that, which was fine.
And was that not devastating at the time? If that's like the one thing you're super good at and you've been training your whole life for?
No, that's actually a good point. It was like very devastating. It was like a pretty big identity crisis. Like, I mean, at that point, anytime someone asked me who I was or what I did, I was like, oh, I'm a gymnast. I do gymnastics. And that was like for sure my identity. I mean, I spent 5 hours a day, almost every day of the week at the gym, like training. Like I didn't really know what there was in the world outside of that. And
okay, that's like a really serious gymnast if you're doing 5 hours a day at the gym every day. Like, do you even climb that much?
I mean, if you count like being out at the crag or like on a multi-pitch all day or something, like it probably adds up to somewhere close to that amount of time in a week.
Yeah, but maybe not even.
Yeah.
I've kept track of times at various times in my life like that, and it's still not like that much.
Yeah. But to just have that like immediately taken away, like that's a lot of time in the week that you have to figure out what you're going to do with. So yeah, that was like a super pivotal moment in my life. Yeah, I went to college. They had a little rock wall on campus. Got pretty into that right away.
What do you like about climbing when you started? And I'm actually kind of curious if part of it was just that you were naturally pretty good at it from the get-go. Just because if you've been an elite gymnast for 11 years, you're going to be a really good climber.
Yeah. I mean, I think I had some level of, I don't want to really think it was talent, but like I was able to just like do pull-ups up the wall and like get up it. So in that context, I guess I was good at it because it was a little small college campus and there weren't like elite climbers around. So it was like, oh yeah, I'm like pretty good at this. But I think mostly it was just having another activity that I could like pour my energy into. Like I'm a very active, energetic person. I have a lot of like pent up energy that I have to get out every day. I say I'm like a dog. Like you have to like take me for a walk every day or I make a mess in the house. But but just having something like some physical activity that I could pour energy into.
And so what did you carry from gymnastics into climbing, if anything?
The biggest thing is just the ability to work hard and like have a kind of like delayed gratification of like having a long-term goal and being able to put a bunch of work into it and see it through.
You mean like training for long periods of time or like working on a route for a long period of time? Like what does that look like?
Yeah, just like being able to work hard at something and not give up or get tired of it, or just like having that level of focus to like work on one thing for a really long time and see the small gains and small process with it.
I mean, since I don't know that much about gymnastics, in gymnastics, do you train like the whole year to develop some new skill or to be able to do a certain maneuver or whatever?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, the competition season is like a couple months of the year, but you're training the entire year for that couple month competition season.
Yeah, but like gaining one skill at a time or something, like a slow, I mean, is it kind of like trying to gain a grade in climbing or like gain a new ability in climbing, like, yeah, being able to do a one-arm lock-off, do whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I just think that ability to work hard and like, I think the capacity that I have where, yeah, like I can go climb all day and like I have that kind of baseline capacity where it's maybe not super high end intensity. Like I'm not bouldering V15, but I can be on the wall for hours and hours and hours. And like that kind of long-term energy, I think is a carryover from gymnastics. And just like what my body is able to handle in terms of volume, I think like I grew up training so many hours, my body's like pretty adapted to a high level of physical activity.
What did you let go of from gymnastics?
I don't know if this is necessarily left behind, but I think gymnastics is like a mentally taxing sport, like pretty scary. And I think climbing can have some of that.
It's like more scary than climbing?
Oh, for sure. I mean, at least the climbing that I do.
Well, most people consider the climbing you're doing to be basically the scariest kind of climbing. Like hard trad is kind of the scariest climbing.
But like flipping 4 feet high over a 4-inch beam that's feet off the ground, like that's way scarier.
Oh, yeah. Even if there's somebody there to spot you or something?
Well, yeah, but you don't always get someone to spot you.
Yeah.
At some point, the mats and the spotters have to go away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, that's way scarier. I think my mental game has improved since I was in gymnastics. And I think that's something that like started to develop in gymnastics. And then maybe it's just because I'm older and slightly more mature now. But I think I'm a lot better at handling the mental side both in terms of like fear management, but also like pressure management, like being able to perform when it matters.
But talking about this idea of trajectory and everything, I mean, it was only a couple years ago that you posted, 5-6 years ago, you posted a photo of you on-sighting Astroman, psyched out of your gourd. I mean, though, to be fair, every photo of you look psyched out of your gourd. You're like, this is so great. But, you go from a few years ago on-sighting Astroman to now sending El Nino with a fully ruptured pulley or ruptured, what was it, the pulley or tendon? Whatever. Basically a grievously injured finger. That's not that long. That's a really fast progression in a lot of ways. What's that all about?
I mean, I think objectively you're right. Perception is so funny though, because in my mind, I'm like, I'm not doing enough. I want to do more. I'm never going to do all the things I want to do. Perception is just a funny thing.
I mean, I hear you. I hear you. You're always like, oh, I should have sent more things. But when you look at the things you've done in the last few years, it has been a remarkably steep climb, pun intended. To what do you attribute that? And like, talk about it.
I mean, I think it goes a little bit back to that, like just ability to work hard, and constantly seeing photos of me looking psyched is like a very genuine thing. That's like not just for Instagram. It's like, that is genuinely how I feel all the time. Like, I just love being out there climbing and trying hard and trying new things. And I don't know, like something I find really compelling about climbing is that there is always going to be something harder for me to do or better style or bigger or whatever. Like there's no point at which I will have like made it or reached the end or whatever. And that is super motivating for me. And I think like I'm not someone that suffers from burnout where it's like, oh, I just did this hard project and now I just want to like chill for a while. It's like, oh, I just did this hard project. I'm like, what's next? Like I'm psyched for the next thing.
Are there things that do sap motivation? Like, so, and I ask because I'm like basically exactly the same. Where like, I'm very motivated by success. Like success begets success. Like if I'm doing well, I'm like, oh, I'm psyched. I'm training. I'm eating well. I'm doing all the things. But then if for whatever reason things go poorly for a while and you're kind of sucking, then I sort of lose some motivation because you're like, oh, it's just hard to be psyched when nothing works anyway. Yeah. I'm curious, do you suffer from the same sort of thing, or like, because you just can't be perma-psyched. Like nobody can be going hard all the time. I mean, maybe you can, but like everybody gets tired sometimes or gets burnt out a little bit, or yeah. I mean, what kills your joy, Yeah, no, that's interesting. I think the failure is motivating to me in a different way, where it's like I feel discouraged by this and frustrated and I'm not meeting my self-imposed expectations. And that is motivating to me in a different way than the successes, where the success you're like, oh, I'm just like going to keep rolling and snowballing this. Whereas the failure is just like, okay, like let's go back to the drawing board and figure out what's going wrong and what do I need to change. And I think that doesn't really make me want to stop. It like almost just makes me want to try harder of like, oh, I'm kind of messing something up. Like, let's go figure this out and get back on track. So you're saying success motivates you and failure motivates you more. So in general, you're just always psyched out of your gourd. Kind of, yeah. Like, man, we all need like to bottle that psych somehow. Like how do I get that fired up all the time? Just train nonstop. Yeah, I mean, I'm always like, you see these people that are actually super talented and like have this really innate ability, and I'm like, like if I could just combine my psych and motivation with that level of talent, yeah, good things would happen. Dude, we could not be more similar. I say the exact same sort of thing all the time because I see so many people where I'm like, if I had fingers like that, I could literally climb anything in the world. Yeah. It's like, because I have so many friends even where I'm like, man, if I could pull that hard, I could literally do anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, yeah, we're so similar in terms of like interest in climbing and sort of personal limits, the things that are like, oh, we're just. But do you think, though, maybe for both of us, this is probably true, that we probably spend a little bit too much time adventuring, which is why, the top end pulling just isn't quite there, because you just can't really have everything. It's like,
yeah, for sure.
You can't climb everything at once.
Yeah, no, I think that is very true. And I say I'm someone like that's really good at exercising and like doing a bunch of, like, I'm just good at having a bunch of energy output. But in order to actually improve the high end, or like the top end strength, you have to have so much more rest. And that is so counter to who I am as a person.
Yeah, it just makes you hate training. You're like, resting? This is bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but to your point, it's pretty impossible to actually do all the things and be good at them at the same time.
We'll be back with more after the break. So a few years into my van life journey, when I was still very young and poor and living in my car, my grandma moved into this senior living community type of kind of nice old folks home. And whenever I was in town, I would go and do Sunday brunch with her. And it was this just insane feast with the waffle bar, the omelet bar, the fruit bar, like all the different stations. And as a 23-year-old man living in a car, I would just go in there with like a bucket basically and just load up and just eat everything. I was so psyched.
Did they have Kodiak Cakes?
They probably did. It was a pretty nice spread.
Now you obviously don't have a breakfast bar, but do you guys eat Kodiak Cakes?
Well, now I have a wife who makes them for our children, so it might not be quite as opulent of a spread, but it's still pretty delicious. The beauty of Kodiak Cakes is that they're way higher protein, so they're just more filling than a traditional pancake. And they just seem a little heartier, feel a little more wholesome. I mean, if something's called Kodiak, you can assume it's kind of hearty.
And what other products are you guys eating? There's
the oatmeal. That's a go-to breakfast for the kids also. There are these insane little dessert cups that my wife loves. Microwavable brownies. It's just, they're the definition of opulent treat. We try not to keep too many around or else we eat them all. Fuel your summer adventures with a quick breakfast packed with the real good stuff. 100% whole grains, protein, and a whole lot of flavor. Find Kodiak products at your local grocery store. They're the ones with the bear on them. Learn more at kodiakcakes.com.
Are you a person that deals or have you gotten old enough that you deal with cramps at all?
I've never cramped really. Right.
Welcome to your 40s, Alex. It's a party.
But I know young people who cramp sometimes. I just don't cramp. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't either until 3 years ago.
Oh yeah? Okay, we'll see.
Last week, dude, I was doing a 50K. I wiped out super hard. I stood up and then my hamstring just fully shut down 25 miles into this race. It was just mayhem. And I stopped and I put an element into my water bottle and I drank it and I totally nursed it and it worked. I got through it. I thought I was done. I thought I was totally hosed in the race. Got through it. Thanks, Element.
Dude, see, I'm just not old enough to properly appreciate it. I'm just kind of yeah, it's nice to have an electrolyte drink. It seems, it's nice sometimes. It makes big outings feel better. I'm like, oh my God, you would have DNF'd if you hadn't had your element.
That's what happens when you're 8 years older and you're Gen X and not a millennial.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, if you're exercising and you're sweating, you are losing electrolytes. And so depending on what you're doing and the intensity at which you're doing it, you have to replenish your electrolytes or else you cramp like fits.
LMNT is formulated for anyone on a mission to restore health through hydration and is perfectly suited for athletes, folks who are fasting, or those following keto, low-carb, whole food, or paleo diets.
Get your free LMNT sample pack with any purchase at drinkelement.com/climbinggold. That's drinklmnt.com/climbinggold.
Will you explain to us just how difficult it is to start from the ground up on LCAP versus rappelling in and rehearsing and then returning to do it from the bottom?
Going ground up on LCAP is what can be more challenging. It's not always more challenging. If you're a good climber and you're climbing one of the relatively easy routes, it is kind of easier just to start at the ground, climb to the top, and be done in 3 to 5 days rather than working on something quite a lot. And so, sometimes it makes a lot of sense. Other times it's a lot more challenging depending on the nature of the route. But it really is it's just much more adventurous. When you go ground up on a wall you don't know, everything about it is new the whole way up. Whereas rappelling down a wall kind of takes away that adventure.
By the challenge of it, do you mean it's just a little bit more scary because you're figuring out the gear?
Yeah, all of it. Like, you don't know where the next anchor is. You're like, where are the bolts? You're looking up, being like, do I go left or right? Like all those kinds of things. Whereas when you rappel down, you already know where the route goes. You figure everything out. You top rope the pitches to rehearse them. It's like there's way less adventure. You're just sort of executing when you've worked it. Yeah, I mean, like the first time I climbed Core Zone, I freaking took Conrad Anchor with me so he could hammer one of the pitches because there was no protection. You like needed pins to protect the pitch. But I'd heard Tommy had done the second ascent of the route, and some aid climbers had stripped all the pro off the pitch, and so he wound up doing this crazy head pointing thing on some 12D where he like aid climbed around it, top roped it, sussed it out, and then managed to send it with basically no pro. And I was kind of like, well, I don't want to do that. And so
you had to bring in the sensei.
Yeah. So I brought Conrad with a bunch of pins and a hammer, and he freaking ate it up this 12D pitch. And then I was able to send it, once the gear was in. And so I did the third ascent. But at the time I bootied a quick draw that Tommy had lowered off of, like some, as part of his whole head pointing process. And I bootied this quick draw that had a little prototype for testing only tag on it. And I was like, this is so cool. This is like a Tommy Caldwell prototype quick draw. I'm so psyched.
Did you ask me to sign it?
No, well, I didn't know him at the time. I was way too,
I know later on.
No, I did have that draw for years because I was like, this is my lucky draw. It's cool. But but I mean, it just used to be much more adventurous like that.
On your website, when you've kind of gone through your climbing resume for your big Yosemite free ascents, you've noted that they're all ground up. And for the listener out there, that means that there's no wrapping in from the top to figure out the hard parts. You're starting at the bottom and you go up. And that's kind of how I think we all, when we're kids, imagine climbing to be, right? And I'm curious, like, why you feel that matters, that style. Like, why is that important to you?
Like the first times I climbed LCAP, we did it in that style. It just because it was like, that was the partners I was going with. That was like, it just like was kind of happenstance. I don't think it was this intentional decision of like me thinking this is the only way. Like, honestly, I wasn't even like steeped in Yosemite culture enough at that point to be like, this is the way we have to do it. Like, this is the ethos, whatever. It was just like, I don't know, kind of like the way that we went about it. And I'm super glad that it is. And now that I do have, I guess, more education around like Yosemite climbing history and all of that, it feels pretty special that that is the way I've approached my LCAP climbing. I think a big part of it is like when I'm choosing to go climb a big wall, that is like the time in the year that I am choosing to go have that big adventure. And most of the rest of the year, I'm sport climbing or doing single pitch or whatever. And it's like that level of adventure is so much lower. And by like that one time of the year that I'm choosing to go climb a big wall is like, that's the experience that I'm seeking out. And I think it's like pretty neat to hold to that when it's possible.
It's sort of like it's your version of some climbers like going to the Himalaya once a year for their big expedition.
Yeah.
Like what you're describing as LCAP is your big expedition each year, and you're choosing to do it alpine style or whatever. Like basically you're trying to do good style on your big adventure of the year.
Yeah. I mean, the whole style thing is like such an interesting discussion, but to me, like it is important to tackle these objectives in a style that feels something that I'm going to be proud of. And like, I am not going to judge someone else for like stancing a pitch or blah, blah, blah. It's like, as long as you're stating it and obvious about it and like not trying to like have all this vague reporting or whatever, but like, I don't care how you do it. Just say how you did it. But for me, like when I choose to go have that type of adventure, like I want to do it in a style that I feel super proud of.
And do you feel more proud of ground up climbing like that?
I mean, I think it makes it a lot more interesting. It makes it a lot harder for sure. And at some point I'm going to run out of routes on LCAP that I can do ground up. Like,
yeah. In basically one more season, you'll be like, oh man, or 2 more seasons.
It's going to be pretty hard for me to go do the nose without checking out changing corners or whatever. Like at some point I'm going to have to compromise on that style, I think.
Like Amity's story kind of makes it sound so easy. You know, where it's like, oh, you're like kind of like sort of dissatisfied with the current state of things. You move into a van, you start climbing all the time, and then all of a sudden you're just like sending as hard as anyone can. And it almost makes it seem, it's like sometimes you hear that about like people on YouTube where you're like, I made millions. And like maybe one person makes millions, but like I don't think all the people on YouTube are making millions, right?
Yeah, though all the people on YouTube aren't trying as hard as Amity is. You know, I mean, that's the thing is I think you're right that Amity gives this false perception of like, oh, if you move into the van, then you can just send. You're kind of like, no, she's like an elite gymnast who's trained since childhood. She's incredibly fit. She tries harder than anyone has ever tried. She's so motivated. She like loves to suffer. She just like pushes herself all the time. So you're like, yeah, she has a unique set of ingredients that make her that good. And most people probably don't have those ingredients, and certainly not in that combination. But part of it is that you don't know if you have those ingredients until you try. I mean, that's the thing, is you kind of have to move into the van and go push yourself and try to find out if that's you. And yeah, most people aren't going to be Amity, but you know, some might.
Although it's not a guarantee.
Yeah, it's definitely not well, I mean, I'm not that driven, you know. I'm sort of like, geez, you know, I look at like the pace with which she's been going and the number of routes she's done, and I'm kind of like, man, that's like, even when I was living in my van going as hard as I could, I wasn't going that hard.
And, you know, I mean, Alex touched on it earlier, but like there's that photo you talked about of like being on Astroman and you look so psyched, you know, you're kind of doing your quintessential like bicep flex in front of a half dome. It's awesome. Like, does that feel one like yesterday and then also simultaneously a long time ago too?
Yeah, it really does. I mean, it feels like a lot has happened that was 2019. That was the first time I'd ever been to Yosemite.
That's crazy. That's so recently.
Yeah.
You've had a big couple years.
Yeah. Yeah, it was 2019, and then I didn't go back till 2021. That was when I did Freerider and Golden Gate. But
so your second trip to the valley, you're just like, oh yeah, 2 LCAP routes free.
Yeah, no, it feels like not that long ago, but at the same time, so much, like I've changed so much in those 5 years that it feels like I'm in some ways a different person, but in some ways still have that just like absolute authentic joy in what I'm doing.
What's the change in the 5 years?
As a person, I've grown and changed and learned things about myself. And I don't know, I think narrowed my focus in some ways of like embracing that these are the things I love doing, and like kind of feeling or giving myself permission to really pursue those and not feel like I have to, I don't know, I'd like follow a more traditional life path or whatever. Like in 2019, I was still just going back to grad school and thinking I was going to have like a very typical 9-to-5 American life. Like I didn't think I was going to be climbing full time or whatever at that point. And
yeah, was it hard for you and your husband to decide to move into the van and go climbing?
Oh man, it came at a time in life when we just needed like a radical 180-degree change from what we were doing. Like he was going to grad school in New Jersey, and
New Jersey, everybody needs a change from grad school in New Jersey.
We were miserable. Like we were not doing well mentally, physically, whatever. Like it was a bad scene. So making that change felt like a very positive thing. But the plan was only to be in the van for like a short amount of time, and neither of us really knew what we wanted to do with our lives, and traveled for a year or whatever. And then I went back to grad school. We were living in the van like all throughout that, and COVID happened. So I was able to be in the van and be in grad school and like be out climbing or whatever, because everything ended up being online for school. But yeah, no, it's really only in the last like couple of years that I've really kind of embraced the path that I'm on, and yeah, I'm just digging into it.
How did your respective families react to you know, becoming van people, like dropping out of grad school or doing everything remotely, going into the van? I mean, like, how do your family see that?
Yeah, Connor like grew up climbing. Like his family is very outdoorsy and adventurous, and it was a bit more like normal, I guess. My family is not at all. Like, I mean, I didn't rock climb growing up at all in Colorado, because like my family was just that was not a thing. So they were like pretty averse to it when I first got into climbing. And I think we're pretty unsure of the whole van life thing when we first started it. But they're like, oh, like they'll find their way eventually, whatever. And now my dad, especially, but like both my parents have like fully embraced it, of like, they think it's so cool what we're doing. My dad will like show his like work friends photos of me climbing and like, oh, this is my daughter. Like she lives in a van. They've like fully embraced it at this point, because they see like how much joy it brings me, and also that I'm like actually making my way in the world through climbing as a medium.
I was about to ask, do you think it's because they see how much joy you get from it, or is that they're just proud that you're good at it? And I ask because like my family obviously has gone through the same sort of thing where it's like years of being like, that's weird. I wonder what he's doing. I wonder when he'll get a real job, you know, like, and then eventually they're just kind of like, yeah, get some. He's the man, you know, and you're sort of like, well, whatever. It's like,
yeah, no, a bit of both.
Yeah, that's cool. At least you won them over.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're psyched.
The one thing that's has always struck me is that the photos of you climbing, it just looks like you are doing exactly what you are meant to doing. You like I would say you would sort of look like the epitome of happy. Does it ever surprise you how much joy you've gotten out of this sport?
Yeah, I guess it does. I feel super grateful to be in the position I'm in right now where I'm able to spend a great majority of my time going rock climbing. And I mean, it's taken quite a few years to get to that point, and it's also something I never expected to like have the sponsorship support or whatever, like to be able to spend so much of my time going rock climbing. And I'm incredibly grateful for that, but it does feel so incredibly genuine. Like I am just so happy to be out there doing what I'm doing. And yeah, I guess it is a bit surprising. I kind of never expected to be in this position where I get to go do these things that I love so much. Yeah, I don't know, I guess just overwhelming feeling is incredibly grateful.
Thank you, Amity, for sitting down and sharing your story. As promised, there is a link to the short film on Book of Hate in the show notes. Check it out. Just a quick editor's note, too. We noted in this episode that Lurking Fear had never seen a repeat after Tommy Caldwell and Beth Rodden originally sent it. And just this week, after 25 years, it got a repeat. Hey, have you heard that you can get Climbing Gold ad-free? I know a few of you have been asking, and so this year we've made that an option. We are calling it Climbing Gold Unroped. Get it delivered right to your feed on all major podcasting networks. We are so grateful for our sponsors, but we also get it. Some people want it without ads, so sign up. Link is in the show notes. Climbing Gold is created by Duct Tape Then Beer. Alex Honnold is our host. Our production team includes the talents of Skylar Perwins, Marco Seiler Gonzalez, and Evan Phillips. Our creative director is me, Fitz Cahal. Music today by Solace and Brendan O'Connell. Our executive producers are Jonathan Retzik and Ben Endy for RXR Sports, and Lacey Hendricks and Becca Cahal for Duct Tape Then Beer. Thanks for listening.